Hey guys, and welcome to this edition of Scruff's Garage. So today's video is a little different than most of my how-to or installation videos. As you no doubt saw in the title of the video, I sold the Corvette. And if you follow my channel for any length of time, you know that's a fairly big deal, at least for the things going on in my garage. The vast majority of my early videos were all surrounding the Corvette. I lost them a motor at the track. And so I did an entire engine build series, and of course other things that are specific and unique to the C5 Corvette, some common problem areas. So before I get into the details about why I sold the car, I thought a more appropriate send-off for the Corvette might be, instead of you just looking at my face and a talking head telling you why I sold a car, I thought it might be more interesting to go back and post. This is actually some video from the very first track day I did with the Corvette. This was before I lost the engine. I had literally just bought the car at this point. And this was the very first track event I did with it. So you can see these are no hero laps, no record-setting laps or anything like that. In fact, it had rained, like standing, pouring rain, the majority of the event. So this is the first dry session I ever got to drive with that car at VIR. So I figured maybe I'll talk, kind of do a voiceover, and you can be entertained by watching some cool track video. But that said, I did sell the Corvette. Actually, I sold it several months ago. I just haven't had a chance to record a video and edit it and post it here for you guys. Now that said, that does not necessarily mean I will not be posting any more Corvette videos. I am notoriously bad for recording videos of projects that I've been working on, but the editing process takes a lot of time. So there are hours and hours of video that I have just on a external hard drive that I've never gotten around to editing and then posting as a YouTube video. So as I was looking back through some files today, I realized there are a number of videos on some projects that I had done previously on the Corvette that I just never got around to editing and posting for you guys to see. So I may still go back and work on some of that. Editing is not my favorite thing to do. I'm much better at working on the car than trying to put things together into a 10 or 15 minute video. But that said, don't give up. There are still Corvette videos that will probably still be posted from time to time as I get an opportunity to go back and edit videos. Okay, so let's get into it. Why did I sell the Corvette? Because obviously I had a bunch of work into it, and you think, well, isn't it kind of throwing it away to then turn around and sell the car? And as I've thought about this, just the bottom line, it comes back to I just wanted something different. You kind of finish being a vague term, but you get a project to a stopping point, and then most car guys know the feeling. You want to move on to something else, and that's just kind of where I was with the Corvette. It was a great car. I had worked out all the issues, even some of the nuanced stuff that's specific to the C5, the electronic brake control module, resoldering relays and stuff like that. And the bottom line, I just wanted something else. So all these other considerations are just ways of justifying wanting something different. But I thought I would talk through that, and maybe it also helps justify the next thing that I have purchased, that I am currently sitting in, as you may have already guessed. So my goal with the Corvette was to make it a street car that was track capable. And I did that. It could be driven to work, and then also changed over and driven at a track day. However, that also means there's a lot of changeover to go back and forth from street trim to track trim. So I always ran DTC 60 brake pads for the track, and then Continental slicks at the track, but neither of those would you want to run on a street car driving back and forth to work. So there was always this process of changing it from street trim to track trim and then back again. So every track event kind of became this 3-weekend ordeal of swapping parts back and forth, getting the car ready for the track. And just at some point that kind of gets old, and I decided I may prefer having something that's just a dedicated track car. It does one thing, it's always set up for the track, and then when I'm not using it, I don't have to keep swapping things back and forth. Speaking of working on the car, no matter what parts you use, even if they're really good parts and properly assembled, the reality is that race cars break, right? Race teams spend a lot of time working on race cars between events. And I just know in the back of my head, just like I never planned for the number 7 piston to crack, parts break if you're going to use the car like that. So I had to stop and think about that. Yes, the engine was built to the very best of my ability with the very best of parts. I pumped a bunch of money into that motor. However, the reality is there's always a chance that it or something else could break when using it at the track. And knowing how much work it is in a C5 to pull the drivetrain out in your garage on jack stands. Now, I did the entire project completely by myself in my home garage on jack stands, so it can be done, no doubt about it. But the reality is it is a lot of work. And having done it once, I'm glad I did it. It was actually the thing that got me into creating my channel and gave me content that was useful to share. But I was not interested in signing up to do it again. So that there was just a thought in the back of my head that you have to accept if you take a car to the track on a regular basis and drive it hard, there's just an opportunity that things will break. And are you willing to do the work to fix them when they do? And while I don't mind doing the work, the extent of just getting to some of those parts on the Corvette was prohibitive, and I didn't want to do it again. So one of my criteria, aside from just having a dedicated track car, is something that would be easier to work on in the future. Another consideration, not that it was the main thing that I made it as a decision point, but the Corvette was also at the peak of its value, at least in my opinion. The C5 Corvette, I don't consider a collector's car, and certainly not one that's been heavily modified. And the reality is the things you do to make it better on the track make it worse on the street. And for most people, the value of a C5 Corvette is as a street car. It's just a limited bunch of guys or girls that want to use a Corvette on the track. And so I just recognized that I'd already lost money from building the motor, right? When the motor goes, that's just a sunk cost. If you're going to fix it, it's going to cost you money, and you're just not going to get that back. And it is what it is. But I recognize that going forward, the Corvette's value would not go up anymore, even if I continued to do things like a big brake kit, right? Then for somebody buying it as a street car, they probably don't care much about a $2,000 or $3,000 big brake kit. It certainly wouldn't add that kind of value to the car. And then other things you do, if you had a big wing or something like that, it's great at the track. Average street car person doesn't value that, and it limits your pool of buyers. So again, not that that was the thing that made the decision for me, but you just have to recognize, are you going to continue throwing good money after bad in building a car like that? So that was just a consideration. I got a fair price for it. Actually, the car is sold in 48 hours. From the moment I listed on Craigslist to the time the new owner paid for it and drove it home. I mean, literally 48 hours. So you list something at a fair price and the right buyer comes along, it moves pretty quickly. The other thing to factor in when you're talking about cost is not just can you afford to buy a particular car to use at the track or modify it for things at the track, but there are also consumable costs. Particularly tires and brake pads and rotors are probably going to be the first things that come to mind. And heavier, higher horsepower cars like the Corvette or Mustang or anything else of that genre, tires and brake pads and stuff like that are expensive. It's just the reality is. And they wear quickly, right? So expensive and they wear fast. That's something you have to factor in. So if you're looking at two comparable track day cars, and one is going to cost you another $1,000 or $2,000 over the course of a season, the less expensive car might allow you to do a couple of extra track day events. And since I'm not independently wealthy, everything you've ever seen on this channel I have paid for myself out of pocket. And so that is something I have to consider, that if I want to do a track day or pay for tires and brake pads and stuff like that, sometimes it's an either or. So if I can do more track events, that would be my preference. So a fair follow-up question then, you say, okay, well, for the same money as a C5 Corvette or close, what can go around the racetrack as fast, be easier to work on, and cost less in consumables? And that's a fairly tall order, because the C5 Corvette is an excellent value in my opinion. It's extremely fast, has a lot of horsepower, can be built to go even faster. So to find something that exceeds it in all of those criteria is a fairly short list of things, especially if you want to buy something relatively turnkey. Now you could go out and buy a new C8 Corvette, and they are blistering fast and they're amazing, but you're going to spend 70, 80, 100 grand to do so, and that's certainly not my budget, and for a lot of guys going to the track, it's not their budget either. So obviously I have purchased something, and I'm going to do a video to show you this car in more detail. I'm excited to show you guys it's very different from the C5 Corvette, and I think you're going to get a kick out of seeing it. Whether it's for you or not, may be a different thing, but I think you're going to enjoy seeing this car. So I'll give you a quick preview now, just so you can see what I bought, and then I'll do a follow-up video with a bit more in depth. I'll crank it up and show you the suspension and all those sorts of things. So that is to come. Make sure you stay tuned for a follow-up video there. Okay, here's the sneak peek I promised you. This is a 2007 Prince LSR. It's kind of a sports racer, would be the general genre. Look inside the cockpit. So sequential paddle shifters, so clutchless upshifts and downshifts. Runs a motorcycle engine and transmission. So like I said, I'll do a full video so you can see this in a bit more detail. So if you have questions, stay tuned for that video as well. The other thing I want to say, as we move away from the Corvette and onto other projects here in the garage, I do want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. When that first motor went and I decided to just record the process of pulling the motor, building a motor, putting it back in, and all the things that go along with it, I never imagined this many people would be interested in seeing whatever I was working on in the garage. It's not that I have a large YouTube channel. I think I'm about 6,400 subscribers at the moment, which is small potatoes in the world of YouTube channels. But for me, it is a big deal and means a lot to me. I've also enjoyed getting to know all the other Corvette guys and people who were just interested in Corvettes or whatever project I was working on here in the garage through the comment section. I've tried really hard. I've answered hundreds and hundreds of questions and comments and feedback to subscribers and people who just viewed the videos. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys through that process. And I plan to continue to answer and support questions if you're a Corvette guy, or if you just enjoy track days, or of course you've seen some of the Jeep videos I have too. I just want to say thank you. It means a lot to me. This is something I do just for fun. The channel is far too small to really earn any sort of income from. So it certainly, obviously, I have a day job that requires most of my time. So recording and editing videos does take a lot of effort. But getting to know you guys and knowing that certain videos have added value for whatever project you may be working on does mean a lot to me. So I just want to say thank you. Please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with whatever I may be working on out here in the garage. So, as always, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Scruff's Garage. We'll see you next time.